Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph, 55a of Maseches Kiddushin, starting from the very top of the page. The Gemara is going to continue to discuss the opinion of Rabbi Meir with regards to hektish, sanctified property, whether, or the opinion of Rabbi Meir that in order to deconsecrate hektish, it has to be that the person misappropriated, misused it deliberately, on purpose. That's mischala, that deconsecrates it, but if it's done b'shogeg, unintentionally, then it does not. As opposed to Rabbi Yehuda, who says the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says that only b'shogeg, only when it's unintentional use, does it deconsecrate it. Is it mischala? Is it me'ila? But if done intentionally, then it's not me'ila, it does not deconsecrate it. So, the Gemara, the Gemara quotes a Mishnah in Maseches Shkalim. Tanan Hasan, we're learning a Mishnah over there. Behema shenimtzeis miYerushalayim l'migdal eder. A person finds an animal just wandering outside of Yerushalayim, outside of Jerusalem, between Yerushalayim and this place called Migdal Eder, which was a certain distance away. Ukemidasa l'chol ruach, or really that's just an example, but that within that distance, any direction from Yerushalayim, you find an animal. Now we have an idea that we assume that the majority of animals in Yerushalayim in Jerusalem are designated to be brought as karbanos, as offerings. So if you find it wandering just outside, there's an assumption it came from Yerushalayim, there's a rove, there's a majority that says that this is probably an animal that was designated for a karban. So if you find it, what do you do with it? So the Mishnah says, Zicharim olos, nekevos zivche shlamim. It says that male animals that you find, you should bring it as a karban ola, as a elevation offering, a burnt offering. Female animals that you find, you should bring as a shlamim, as a peace offering. Now, a ola, an elevation offering, has to be a male. It's always a male. Imola karbano, it has to be zachar tamim. It has to be a male. But shlamim actually could be either male or female. But so far, the Mishnah says if it's a male, you assume it's an ola, you bring it as an ola, as an elevation offering. If it's a female animal that you find, you bring it as a shlamim. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean? El zecharim olosu dahavu, zivche shlamim lo havu. A shlamim could be a male or a female. So if you find a male, it might be that it was designated as an ola, but it also could be it was designated as a shlamim, as a peace offering. So the Gemara asks, those male animals that you find, olosu dahavu, you assume that it's an ola, an elevation offering, but it's not a shlamim. You should have to be concerned for both. So Rav Oshia says, you're right, but we kind of misunderstood what's going on here. Hacha biba lachov bidmei askinan. What we mean is that you find this animal, what you have to do, you don't know what it is. You don't know what karban it was. So you obligate your own money in place of it. The hachi kamar, and this is what it was saying. Chayshinan shema olos. We're concerned maybe, if you find a male, maybe it's an ola, but maybe it's a shlamim. So in order to deal with the situation, a person who finds it, what they're supposed to do is redeem it on money, trade it for money basically, and use the money as to buy a karban and bring the karban. So the Mishnah is saying that if you find a male animal, you have to be concerned that even for an ola, certainly for a shlamim, but even for an ola, and therefore when you redeem it with money, you should redeem it on enough money that you can take that money now and buy two karbanos, both a shlamim and an ola. If it's a female, you just have to do a shlamim. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir and this would be within the opinion of Rabbi Meir, De Amar Hektish b'mezid mischalel, who holds that Hektish, when misappropriated and misused deliberately, is mischalel, it does deconsecrate it. Because the point is, you have these animals, they were designated as karbanos, so what are you going to do with the animals? You can't, let's say if it's a male, you can't just bring it as a ola, because maybe it was a shlamim. You can't bring it as a shlamim, maybe it was an ola. So what we're suggesting is you flip it, you deconsecrate the animal on money, you redeem it for money, and now the money takes on the kedusha, the holiness. Use the money to buy karbanos. But that only will help you if you actually deconsecrated the animal, otherwise you still have this animal that is supposed to be a karban, and it still has to be a karban. So the Gemara is saying that this Mishnah is going like the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who held that you can deliberately take away, deconsecrate hektish. So here you have animals that are sanctified, so you can deliberately deconsecrate the animal in exchange for money, and the money will take over the kedusha. And then you use the money to bring 2 karbanos. The way that Rashi explains it, what you would really do is you would make a condition, and you bring the amount of money for the animal twice. So you'd say, if this animal was really an ola, so then let the deconsecration that's exchanged for the money that I'm going to use for an ola work, and the other money, which would be for a shlamim, will be a voluntary shlamim, and you say, but if this animal is really a shlamim, so the money that I'm exchanging for a shlamim, that I'm going to use to bring a shlamim, that will be the one that's exchanged for this, and the other money which I'm going to use for an ola, will be a voluntary ola. That's what the person would say. But the point is that the Gemara is saying that this will work within the opinion of Rabbi Meir, that you can deliberately deconsecrate hektish. Ask the Gemara, Ukdushas haguf mi mischalel? But can you deconsecrate something that has inherent holiness? Meaning the animal, when it's designated as a karban, it's called Kiddushin haguf. The body itself becomes consecrated. And can you really deconsecrate an animal that's been designated as a karban and now has Kiddushin haguf and now it has inherent holiness? V'atanan, we learned in a Mishnah, a moel achar moel b'mukdashin. There's no such thing as one me'ilah after another me'ilah when it comes to things that are designated, el b'behema u'b'kli sharis bilvad, except for animals and the holy vessels of the temple, the kli sharis. Meaning, so if a person has something that they donated to the Beis HaMikdash, they designated some money, let's say, maybe whatever it might be, they designated an object to donate to the Beis HaMikdash. So that doesn't have Kedushas Haguf. It doesn't have inherent Kedusha. It's not an animal, it's not a Kli Sharis, it's not a vessel of the Beis HaMikdash. It's just something that really, when I donate it, I'm really donating the value to the Beis HaMikdash. It doesn't have its own inherent Kedusha. So then, but still, I can't benefit from it unless it's redeemed. Otherwise, I have to give it to the Beis HaMikdash. It belongs to the temple. But let's say I go and I use it. So that's me'ilah. That's misusing something that belongs to hektish. When I misuse it, as we've discussed, different opinions, if it's true b'mezig or b'shogeg, intentionally, unintentionally, but in one of those cases where I misuse it, it loses its kedusha. It's mischala. So it's deconsecrated. So the Mishnah says there's no me'ilah after me'ilah b'mukdashim for things that are sanctified, because you can't do me'ilah twice in a row, because the first person that does me'ilah, that misuses it, deconsecrates it. And now the second person who uses it, it's not holy anymore, it's not me'ilah again. So there's no me'ilah after me'ilah, the Mishnah says, except for an animal, that's for a karban, and the klisharis and the vessels of the Mishkan. You can't deconsecrate those, the vessels of the Beis HaMikdash. So Ketzad, then the Mishnah goes on and gives an example. So somebody designated an animal, let's say as a carbon, and then somebody wrote on it, which is benefiting from hektish. That's me'ilah. And then another guy came and also wrote on it. A third guy came and wrote on it. Kulam ma'alu. Mishnah says they all transgress me'ilah, because you cannot deconsecrate an animal that's a carbon. Now to the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash, the klisharis, the service vessels. So a person was drinking from a gold cup, and now another guy came and drank from it. And then another one came and drank from it. They all transgressed me'ilah. They all misappropriate hektish because it didn't lose its kedusha. Klisharis, the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash don't lose their kedusha. But what do we see here? We see that an animal that's made as a carbon, you can't deconsecrate it. Even if one person misappropriates it by writing on it, another guy comes, he also transgresses me'ilah. It's not deconsecrated. So we were trying to say that this case where you find an animal wandering on the hills of outside Jerusalem, the solution is to deconsecrate it over money. You redeem it for money. Gemara says you can't deconsecrate an animal. It's not going to help. So the Gemara answers, Ahi Rabbi Yehuda. No. The Mishnah that's saying you can't deconsecrate an animal, that's in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir. But we're going in the opinion of Rabbi Meir. So the Mishnah that talked about that you can't have me'ilah after me'ilah normally, that was going in Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda holds me'ilah is when done unintentionally, b'shogeg. So we would have been talking about somebody misused hektish, b'shogeg, unintentionally. But that deconsecrates it. And the Mishnah would be saying that's true for regular sanctified items, but not for animals and not for klisharis. And it's going in the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Meir could maintain that you could deconsecrate an animal of hektish. Ask the Gemara, but mid Rabbi Yehuda nishmal Rabbi Meir. From Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, we should be able to derive what Rabbi Meir's opinion is. Because Ulav Amar Rabbi Yehuda, didn't Rabbi Yehuda say hektish b'shogeg mischala? Rabbi Yehuda says that hektish is deconsecrated when used unintentionally, b'shogeg. U'kedusha zaguf lo mischala. But you can't deconsecrate something that has inherent kedusha like a carbon, like an animal designated for a carbon. So Rabbi Meir nami. For Rabbi Meir, we should say the same thing. Avogav de hektish b'mezid mischal. Even though he disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda with regards to how me'ilah works, how deconsecrating works, and holds that it's mischalel, that you deconsecrate hektish when you use it on purpose, but kedusha saguf lo mischala. But you should still say that you can't deconsecrate kedusha saguf. You can't deconsecrate something that has inherent kedusha like a carbon. Meaning, the Gemara is basically saying, why are we assuming that there would be any machlokas on this point between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir? We're trying to say, no, the Mishnah that says you can't deconsecrate an animal, that's going like Rabbi Yehuda. And we know Rabbi Yehuda argues on Rabbi Meir. Yeah, but Rabbi Yehuda argues on Rabbi Meir about a different point. He argues on Rabbi Meir about when me'ilah deconsecrates something. Rabbi Meir says it's only if you misuse hektish on purpose, then it deconsecrates it. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's only if you use it by accident, unintentionally, without knowing it was hektish. That's what deconsecrates it. Okay, they argue about that, but why would we assume that they also argue about whether you can deconsecrate an animal that was designated as a carbon, something that has inherent kedusha? If we have a Mishnah that Rabbi Yehuda holds that you can't, so we should learn from there that Rabbi Meir would agree to that. We don't want to increase machlokas, increase disputes. It would be more logical. Why wouldn't they agree about that? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why they wouldn't agree. Because it's different. Hasam, in Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the case of me'ilah is where you do it unintentionally. So there, lo kamechavin la'afukinu lechulin. You're not intending to deconsecrate it. So you used it unintentionally. So yeah, if you use something unintentionally, then we would say that's what Rabbi Yehuda would say, even though in general Rabbi Yehuda says unintentional misuse does deconsecrate something, but something that has inherent kedusha, like an animal, you can't, it doesn't work on that. If you misuse it unintentionally, it's not going to affect it, it's going to remain holy. But Hacha, but here in Rabbi Meir, you intend to deconsecrate it. So it's very possible, and logical perhaps, or reasonable at least, that Rabbi Meir could maintain that, since in general Rabbi Meir holds that when do you deconsecrate something? When you misuse it on purpose. So too, even an animal that has inherent Kedusha, it was infused with Kedusha Saguf. With inherent Kedusha, it was designated as a carbon, but if you misuse it deliberately, so that has the ability to be mischal, to profane it, to deconsecrate it. Okay, so we can, so we're going to continue to maintain that that's what's going on here, that the Mishnah is the first Mishnah we started with, where you find an animal on the outside of Yerushalayim, that we're going to go for now, like Rabbi Oshia's explanation, that what you do there, what the Mishnah was really saying that you do, is you deconsecrate the animal by redeeming it against money, and you use the money to bring a carbon in its place. Ask the Gemara, Amar deshamas Rabbi Meir b'kadshe kadshin. That which we find that Rabbi Meir says, that if you misuse hektish, it deconsecrates it, that's by kadshe kadshin. That's by kachim of the highest order. The real context that we have him saying it in is things that a person designates to the Beis HaMikdash. That's your classic hektish. Right, like Rashi says, the stam hektish, the standard hektish, is for the bedek habayis, it's for the temple use, and that is similar to kadshe kachim, to the highest order, because it's the point is it's only being used, it only gets used for temple use. Kadshe kachim are karbanos, like a chatas or something like that, that is only consumed by either the mizbeach or the kohanim, but it's for temple use only. As opposed to kachim kalim, lighter kachim, those are like a shlamim, peace offering, where actually the owners get to eat the meat. They can take it outside of the temple even. They can't take it outside of Yerushalayim, but they could take it outside of the Beis HaMikdash. So that's lighter Kedusha. So the Gemara says, where do we have that Rabbi Meir says that if you misuse hektish purposely, it deconsecrates it? That's with regards to kadshe kachim. Kachim of the highest order. But kachim kalim mi shamasle. But have we ever heard that he says that even by kachim kalim, even kachim of the lighter kachim, like shlamim offering? And so in our case of this Mishnah, where you find the animal on the mountain and it might be a shlamim, and we're saying, oh yeah, don't worry, just deconsecrate it like Rabbi Meir. But who says that Rabbi Meir agrees that even by kachim kalim, even lighter kachim, like shlamim meat, that you can deconsecrate that it will work to deconsecrate it on purpose. So Amar Le'ahu Me'Rabbanan, so one of the rabbis responded, Rabbi Yaakov Shmei, and his name was Rabbi Yaakov. He said, Kal v'chomer. It's a Kal v'chomer. We can learn it logically, a fortiori, all the more so. If kadshe kachim ischalalim, if kachim of the highest order get deconsecrated when they're misused, kachim kalim l'kol shekain, wouldn't you say all the more so kachim of the lighter order, the kachim kalim, the lighter kachim, should be able to be deconsecrated when misused? So we can learn it out logically. And itmar nami, we had this stated elsewhere as well. Amar Rabbi Chama b'Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Chama, the son of Rabbi Akiva, said, Amar Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Chanina, Omar Hayya Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir would say, hektish b'mezid mischala. Hektish, when it's misused on purpose, it's mischal, it's deconsecrated. V'shogegeng mischal. If it's misused unintentionally, it's not mischal, it's not deconsecrated. And echad kachim, echad kachim kalim. It doesn't matter if we're talking about kachim, the highest order of kachim, the holier kachim, or sanct, echad kachim kalim, or even the lighter form of kachim, like shlamimit, and it's a kal v'chomer, and it's learned logically a fortiori. Kadshe kachim ischalim. If kadshe kachim get deconsecrated when misused, kachim kalim lo kol shekain, all the more so kachim kalim. Okay, top of the next page. Gemara says, Tihi ba Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan questioned the explanation of Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia understood the Mishnah that says that when you find an animal on a mountain or whatever, on the hills outside Yerushalayim, that you assume it's a carbon and you deconsecrate it for money. Rabbi Yochanan wondered about that. Do we tell a person to sin in order to tizke, to merit? In other words, it's true, we have an issue here to deal with. We have an animal, we're not sure what to do with it. But to tell him to deconsecrate it, to be mechalel it, you're not allowed to do that. You can't just be mechalel an animal that's fit to be a carbon. You have an animal that's that you find, it's in perfect shape, it's tamim, it's no mum, no blemish, and it's fit for a carbon. Me'ila is an isser, it's a prohibition. You can't just go ahead and profane it and deconsecrate it intentionally. So what's this solution that Rabbi Yoshia was suggesting, that you just, don't worry, you just go and deconsecrate it for money? Rabbi Yochanan didn't like that. But we tell somebody to sin in order to merit. In other words, it's true, we have to, there's a situation here, shetizke, but you can't just go and transgress this prohibition. So Elam Rabbi Yochanan said, Mamting lachet tumam umaisi shtei behemus umasne. Now you have to wait until it gets a mum. Wait till it gets a blemish, and then you bring two animals and you make a condition. So Rabbi Yochanan says that what the Mishnah meant when it said that when you find an animal, if it's a male, you should bring it as an ola. If it's a female, you should bring it as a shlamim. So it doesn't mean you bring the animal itself, and it doesn't even mean you bring money in instead, like Rabbi Yoshia is suggesting. Rabbi Yochanan says it means something else. What you do is you wait till it gets a mum, not just any mum, a mum kavua, a blemish that's going to last, and which disqualifies it from bringing as a carbon. Once it's disqualified from being brought as a carbon, so then you're allowed to switch again to deconsecrate it for another animal, and you would bring forth two animals. One that could be a carbon for the male at least. Since you don't know if it's a shlamim or an ola, you bring forth two animals, and you would do similar to what we described before. Just before we said about money, now we're saying it about the animals themselves. You bring forth two animals, and you'd say, if the one animal that I found is a shlamim, so then the shlamim should take its place, and the ola will be a voluntary ola. And if the animal that I found was really an ola, then the ola will take its place, and the shlamim that I'm also going to bring will be a voluntary shlamim. And you make that condition, and that way you will have properly replaced the animal that you found, and the other one will just be a voluntary offering. That is the solution. That's the solution that Rabbi Yochanan suggests. That's how Rabbi Yochanan interprets the Mishnah of one who finds an animal outside of Yerushalayim. Okay, we will pick up and continue to discuss this next time.